Welcome to Terror in Tandem, a podcast about finding entertainment in the macabre, hosted by the knowledgeable and lovable Laura and Richard Mathiasen. Each episode, we discuss the horror genre, from books to film to TV and beyond, sometimes even from the beyond. Beyond. You can find us on YouTube and on Instagram at Terror in Tandem, and you'll always find our latest and greatest episode on our website, terrorin-tandem.com.
Yeah, and we're all caught up on YouTube, you know?
Yeah, we've watched everything that YouTube has to offer.
That's true. We got to the end of YouTube.
We did. Now it's...
I have been drinking a lot of
in the blue
colloidal
tube.
Silver and weird supplements that I bought off YouTube. I am... What an episode, Laura. What an episode.
Why did we do this to
is.
ourselves?
No, listen, here.
Now we're doing it to you. You're
Here's
welcome,
how it
everyone.
started for me. That's how it started for me. So this episode that we're about to embark upon began with just a moment of not doing my research. Beloved co-host Laura said, what sort of like creepy crawly monster thing do you want to do next? And I said snakes.
Because it's the thing he's least afraid of.
Exactly. I don't want to do bugs. I don't like things that swarm.
There's certain bugs I don't want to do.
Swarm
but,
me.
You know, I've done a lot of discomfort for this podcast.
I agree. And
I've made myself extremely uncomfortable for this podcast.
And in this marriage. I
have made myself so uncomfortable just sometimes being
seen with me in public. Yeah, no, I understand that. And it's been remarked upon incessantly and written about in the local paper.
You think I would have like easy, accessible go-to excuses for you at this point, but I don't.
No, there's no excuse for me. So I chose snakes because I was like, well, certainly. Exactly. In the thousands of years since we decided that, the snake was the avatar of all evil and sin, that there would be plenty of horror movies and horror whatnots to choose from. And boy, oh boy, was I extremely fucking wrong about that, much to my absolute shock and surprise. I won't do that the whole episode.
Why?
I might.
So yeah, there's not a lot of scary snake content out there.
Well, the thing is, snakes, there's an absolute snake ton of snake scenes in horror movies.
Yeah,
and
snakes
that represent evil and malevolence, and snakes that make you, just add to a scene's atmosphere.
Snakes come up in movies. They're
tons,
in movies,
all the time. We're out of necessity.
Used as like, representations in like witch movies.
Oh yeah, you're going to see them a lot in like demonic possession
You'll
movies.
see, The Craft.
Or literally any Indonesian movie.
But these are the best that we could find
in terms of an entire
horror snakes.
Yeah, like an entire movie or book or whatever that is about snakes as the primary, antagonist. This is the best we could do.
I guess I have to get better at pronouncing the word horror because I've been mentioned to multiple times.
I have been getting a lot of Instagram inquiries from people that might be misinterpreting that word, although maybe that's just spam.
I'm sorry that the RROR is, comes
it's a
out
tough
as
one.
horror
It's a tough one.
Horror?
Yeah.
Because I speak quickly.
Yeah.
So, horror.
Welcome to the creatures of the night and the ladies of the night. So, we are going to talk about snake movies that disclaimer, not one of these movies can be described as what a film critic might say is good. However, what I did notice, and it took us a while to do this episode because you and I, we were going at it the traditional route of like, let's find really good scary shit and talk about it. However, scarcity made me by necessity become a little bit more creative, and I just watched these really weird B movies and had so much fun, just a blast with these wild movies about snakes because, slim pickings. And I absolutely, no, but a lot of his contemporaries were. I had a ton of fun with this episode. I actually ended up watching a movie that is now burned itself into my brain as one of the funniest, unintentionally funny horror movies I've ever seen. I've like rarely ever laughed that hard.
Well, I would say that I only talk about two. It was really hard pressed to find anything else interesting. But one is.
Do you want to talk about
tagged as a horror comedy for sure?
Okay.
I want to talk though. I thought it would be interesting because we do talk about certain phobias and etymological origins.
Yeah. No, we like to get into the nitty gritty
things
of our ghouls and goblins.
I wanted to talk a little background about snakes.
Le snake
symbols,
as they say in France.
Yeah. Well, you already mentioned the Garden of Eden.
I did. Old Lucifer.
So I'm going to go with sort of the scariest, probably historical or literary representation of snakes is with Medusa. From Greek myth, she's a gorgon, which is a monster of the underworld, essentially. And there are 3 of them. They were all sisters.
Yeah.
And she was the only one that was mortal of the 3. So she has a crown of hair with venomous snakes, and being mortal as a gorgon was very, very rare. There's arguments as to who cursed her because she was very beautiful. She had an affair with some god, obviously. It was either Athena or Minerva. There's different stories that
it's the same god. Minerva is just the Roman name for Athena.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So sometimes she's represented as beautiful, sometimes grotesque. And the key is to her horror is that anybody that gazes upon her will turn to stone.
Literally,
like, stopped in their tracks with fear.
That's like any depiction, like when Perseus goes to get her.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. She lived on a remote island after she was turned into this monster. And in this cave where she lives, all the warriors that have come to, kill her, because her head still holds the power to freeze your enemies. So any warrior that had it could then be powerful to, like, all of their enemies. Anyway.
Yeah, it was essentially, once her head was cut off, became like an ancient Greek weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah.
If you lifted that over a battlefield, you could turn 10,000 soldiers to stone, which in ancient Greek times, that's essentially a hydrogen bomb.
It eventually went on Athena's shield, the head. But before that, Perseus, who was equipped to the hilt by the gods with items to keep him safe. So he was not a typical warrior that went in there. I guess they used all of the knowledge that had created this sort of warrior graveyard. And because he had a shield that had a mirror-like shine, he was able to position it so that essentially she cast her own gaze upon herself. And he could see her coming and then chopped her head off. So other mentions from Greek mythology, specifically about snakes, is the staff of Asclepius, which represents healing originating from shedding and renewal of snakes themselves, their body. Caduceus has a staff with 2 intertwined serpents that Hermes carried, and he delivered messages.
Yep.
Sometimes they were good messages, sometimes they were bad. So there's a lot of duality that is represented in snakes.
Yeah, the Ouroboros.
Especially in Greek. Well, that was I'm getting there.
Okay.
Romans also took the Medusa head and made coins of the image, and the head became a symbol of protection from disease, warding off evil. Versace, the designer, uses a Medusa head in their logo. And it inspired Gianni Versace to do this because he thought Medusa had an appeal that makes people unable to look away, and was believed that it represented a symbol of beauty and power. What you mentioned, being the Ouroboros, these are some of the symbols of snakes and serpents. So standing behind a snake, you're protected, but being faced with a snake usually is a position of being in danger or peril. So a lot of these symbols were used to ward off evil, because you like wore it around your neck or wore it on your head, on your crown, or what have you.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, I mean, it's in all the old stories, like Hercules, Hera sending poisonous snakes to kill Hercules in his crib, or Cleopatra killing herself with an asp.
Yeah,
which is a fun way to go.
The Ouroboros, or a tail eater, is an image of a serpent eating its own tail that originated in Egypt. That you mentioned, Cleopatra, and it symbolizes circle of life or sexuality. Sexual intercourse.
Yeah.
Ophidiophobia. Ophidiophobia. That's the fear of snakes.
Okay.
It's one of the most common phobias, and often goes back to a childhood experience with a snake in some way.
Makes sense.
Also, snakes are thought to be a symbol of authority.
Yeah. And also the devil.
Yeah. So the forked tongue.
Like the snake handlers of America who, pretend to play with venomous snakes. And some of them do and then die from it. And, F-O-F-I. No, wait. F-O-F-O? Fuck around, find out? Yeah, that's it. No, F-A-F-O. I'm bad at things. So those are some biblical and historical snakes. And this is what I'm talking about, why I was so surprised that snakes themselves have not become the primary antagonist of an awful lot of horror movies, because they've been the primary antagonist of humanity since its fucking conception, in according to the Christian religion or whatever it is.
They could make another Medusa movie even.
There's a lot out there, folks. But that being said, I think what you and I are going to do is talk about a few specific examples that we did come up with. And me personally, I had an amazing time. And then I thought you and I could do sort of a lightning round at the end of famous snakes that maybe didn't have a whole movie dedicated to them, but when they did show up... We don't know
their names.
I know some of their names, but when they did show up, they made a real fucking impact.
You know the snakes' names?
Some of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you start?
I am going to start with... I'm just going to get this one out of the way. Now, here is a movie that is a classic example of hype vastly overshadowing or being vastly more than what the actual product was. And I'm, of course, talking about David R. Ellis's 2006 thing, Snakes on a Plane. Now, Snakes on a Plane, when it came out, especially before it came out, it was a lot of fun. It was, it came out in 2006. So like 2005 was really like the MySpace era. So a lot of blogs and a lot of stuff that was booming. And this wild movie comes out that the writer had been trying to make forever. And it kept getting turned down until some weird coked up producer was like, yeah. And Samuel L. Jackson immediately jumped on it because he was like, yeah, this seems like a lot of fun. It's the kind of movie I would love as a kid and I want to do it. And all of these film critics were like, why would Samuel L. Jackson lower himself to do this? Because, he was pretty well respected, as he still is. And he really, to his credit, was such a vocal and enthusiastic supporter of this movie. He went to Comic-Con to promote it. He really pushed back on critics being like, how dare you be so snooty? Just like have fun. Not everything has to be like a heart-wrenching drama. You could just go to the movies and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, the end product just wasn't good. And that was such a bummer because everyone was really excited to see Samuel L. Jackson say, get these motherfucking snakes off my motherfucking plane. And, he does do that. But then there's 89 minutes of movie left.
Yeah.
So this movie has a pretty stacked cast. It's got everybody from Samuel L. Jackson, Juliana Margulies, Taylor Kitsch, Bobby Cannavale, and, of course, obviously, Kenan Thompson. So that...
Lots of good people
in this movie. David R. Ellis, I don't want to touch on this too much. He died quite tragically in 2013.
Snakebite?
He was a award-winning and world-class stuntman and stunt coordinator. I'm just glossing over that because I did say tragically. He was a world-class stunt guy. As a director, though, his output was a little rough. Like Final Destination 2 and 4, which are the worst ones, and
2 is really bad.
Yeah. So anyway, this movie, it was critically panned and it really thudded at the box office, which it's another classic example of studios misreading the point. So they saw all of this online reaction of people making parody songs and, early forms of memes and writing blogs about it and, being great. And they said, wow, this movie's going to make so much money. So they did a bunch of reshoots and made it more extreme or whatever. And the movie's just bad. It's like a slog. Blah, blah, blah. A white blonde surfer guy sees a Asian guy commit a murder. Samuel L. Jackson plays a marshal transporting him on the plane. The Asian guy, crime lord, releases a boatload of snakes on the plane to take this guy out in an absolutely foolproof assassination plot. By the way, I mean, can't see any way this would go wrong. And the snakes get loose, and Samuel L. Jackson fights them, and they bite people, and blah blah blah. It's just not great. It is a movie where the title and the hype. It was a really fun time to be around during the lead up to this movie because everybody was having a great time with this idea. But then I saw it in the theater, and I was like, oh, it was kind of an example of hype overdoing the movie.
Yeah.
But, listen.
You wanted more snakes on the plane.
It didn't deliver in anything other than, there were a whole bunch of snakes on this plane. You didn't lie about that. But, it was loosely inspired. I think the writer was inspired by stories of pilots in Indonesia during World War II finding brown tree snakes in their cargo holds after landing there because they were digging airfields out of the jungle.
Yeah.
So...
and they had to land somehow. You know what I mean? When you land in the jungle, you pick up a lot because you're making up their own runway.
Yeah, you're parking your plane on the
I'm sure
on
there's
the
a lot
snakes
of spiders in there too.
Oh God, look, I watch a lot of Indonesian horror movies, and I'm going to get to that a little later because hard to find one of those without snakes in it.
Yeah.
It is the land where every once in a while, a villager will wander off, and then they will find her digested corpse.
We want to be very clear. There are a lot of movies that have snakes.
Yes, but what we were surprised by was the dearth of movies in which the snake is the focused and primary antagonist.
And there are plenty, but they're real bad.
Yeah,
so it was
they're asylum films, like Pythonosaurus fights Anaconda Man.
Well, should I get into mine?
Yeah,
first one.
Snakes on plane.
One of the most famous snake movies is Anaconda. So I'm going to talk about that.
I don't want none.
From 1997, directed by Louis Liosa. He's Peruvian. And written by Hans Bauer.
Is he also Peruvian?
I don't know. He wrote Anacondas, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, which was the second iteration of Anaconda.
Yeah.
And so just a brief synopsis. Terry, who's played by J-Lo, is a filmmaker, believe it or not, looking for a lost tribe. Her crew is made up of an anthropology love interest played by Eric Stoltz, which is very misplaced.
Amazing.
He gets sick pretty early on or injured or something. I think he gets injured and you don't see him. You see him maybe for the first 5 minutes of the movie and then the last 5 minutes.
Eric Stoltz, why not pasty, pale ginger Eric Stoltz.
He was sweating and pasty.
Put him right in the fucking Amazon.
And then the cameraman, played by Ice Cube. The rest of her crew, played by Owen Wilson. Yes, you forgot that he was in Anaconda? Me too. Wow. And Carrie Weir. She was a 90s darling.
Yeah.
You know, I guess Gillian Anderson lost that part to Carrie Weir. Weir.
Jillian, that's okay. You are better than this.
And then they're joined by Jon Voight, who is like a local
who is
guy,
not better than this,
an expert of sorts. And
he used to be, though.
Is meant to be from Paraguay.
So
that is the accent that he is attempting, but it's more like a Canadian Creole.
It's an uncomfortable pastiche of God knows what coming out of the extremely Caucasian Jon Voight's mouth, who has, all to his credit, has never been shy about how he feels about other people. So it's real weird. It's just real weird.
Of some kind of accent that he was supposed to represent, and allegedly it was from Paraguay.
And he's also doing this like swashbuckling, like, you know, Humphrey Bogart type shit.
So anyway, back to anacondas. They're at their longest, they're 17 feet long for females typically, and about 15 feet for males.
Ooh,
the film depicted
that hurts the ego.
Anaconda as 40 feet or longer. They rarely prey on humans. Green anacondas, which are the ones featured in this film, are the largest snake native to America. So the animatronics are very interesting. And according to information I found about the filming, the controls for the animatronic anaconda shorted out during filming. And so it made the animatronic anaconda really difficult to control, but they left all of that in the film.
Oh, that explains why it's like movements
herky-jerky.
It basically only moves on like a horizontal axis. It just swings back and forth.
I believe, and I didn't write this down, so don't quote me on it. I believe it was $100,000 every second for the anaconda CGI used in this film.
Not worth it.
So.
And we're talking 1998 CGI.
A bunch of the cast were actually really afraid of snakes, so filming took much longer than they had anticipated.
Did they not read the script first?
Or? Ice Cube, 10 years after the film was released his own cut of the film, which was 10 minutes long, called Iced Anaconda, which included all the footage that he shot while acting as the cameraman in the film. Helen Mirren has said that this is her favorite film.
Helen Mirren, you beautiful weirdo.
One of her favorite films.
I bet
probably like a campy, silly film.
I know Helen Mirren, most people know her as an older woman. Go see Excalibur. That woman has always been
snakes.
Edgy and freaky. Absolutely snakes.
Snakes are definitely in that film.
Morgana, you minx.
I think she probably holds one in that film.
She does more than that.
So Anaconda is a film for people who want to laugh at the ridiculousness of how everyone in this film is taking this whole film very seriously.
Oh yeah, kudos to the cast. They don't.
It suffers from that though, in my opinion, because it
would have been more fun if they leaned
scary. Into it. It's very predictable, and if they made it a little bit like horror comedy or let Ice Cube have a few more funny lines. I mean, what's Owen Wilson doing there if not for comedic relief?
See, that's the thing is I'm pretty sure that no one was on the same page at this movie because the way Jon Voight plays this movie is like it is a comedy.
He just wants the money.
No, he is
not for the film, for the Anaconda.
Oh yeah,
that's what I mean.
Can we get to the absolute fucking coup d'etat, the creme de la creme, the pièce de la résistance.
Coup de grace.
Of this, that's it. I said coup d'etat, didn't
I?
I don't know. It's just some reason on my mind with things going on. Now, Jon Voight, spoiler alert, gets eaten by the anaconda. Because of course he does.
There's only 3 survivors.
He's the fucking mustache twirling villain of the movie.
And one of them is Eric Stoltz, believe it or not.
Way to go, dude. Way to go. Couldn't survive Back to the Future, but you made it through this.
Couldn't survive Mask.
Or The Fly 2. I don't think Rocky Dennis survived being
No,
mad.
he didn't.
Yeah.
I know. That's why it was not funny, not funny.
Boy, oh boy. Anyway, so John Voight gets eaten, and that's not the end of it, because the snake vomits up a partially digested John Voight covered in like snake stomach goo, and he's still alive long enough to look J-Lo right in the eye and wink. And then drop dead to the ground.
Yeah.
And it is a moment that I'll never forget seeing in the theater, because I did see this in the theater, of like, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
First off, how are you alive? Second, this is your last like few seconds on the planet, and you're spending it being creepy.
It's best to take this film in small doses and just
it's also
really
with edibles.
Watch it to be fun. And not to be a horror movie.
I mean, it's bad. It's not good.
It's not good, but
No.
it is
some
part of the snake geist.
No, like when you mention snake movies to anybody, it's the first fucking one anyone mentions.
I've seen Anaconda. Yeah, and it's not scary.
Yeah.
If you want more Anaconda, there is an Anaconda-verse.
Yeah.
Which includes this film, Anaconda. Anacondas, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid. Anaconda 3, Offspring. Anacondas, Trail of Blood. Lake Placid versus Anaconda. And it released from China this past March, Anaconda.
The Chinese remake.
Nobody is involved.
No.
None of the same players are involved, obviously.
Yeah.
J-Lo didn't come back for the Hunt for Blood October. I want to keep saying that, but it's not. It's the Hunt for Blood Orchid.
I love it.
But guess what happens, though, at the end? J-Lo does find that lost tribe after all.
Oh, that's nice.
After they fucking ruined their barricade to keep that anaconda out.
Yeah.
That's the other thing with John Voight. He doesn't give a shit about protecting anything.
Are we still talking about the character, or?
Well, I did say John Voight, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, guess what?
More snakes.
Snakes.
I guessed. Fellow lycanthropes and lichen folks, my name is Larry Talbot, and not long ago I was, whilst innocently beating a giant wolf to death in the woods with my walking stick, turned into a werewolf. A giant, hair-covered monstrosity doomed to roam the earth covered in fleas, with nary a chance of looking my old dapper self. And that, good sirs, is why I created the Wolfman's Hair Removal Club for men and women. This monthly subscription service includes a team of compassionate and well-armored were-beauticians who will arrive at your chain dungeon at the moon's zenith and fix you up like a shiny new penny. Adamantium-tipped blades mean no pelt is too unkempt to be shorn for your Sunday best. And don't worry if you eat a few of our beauticians. Around here, we just call that the price of doing business, friend. So keep that gal of yours, or fella, on your newly shorn arm with our monthly removal and styling services. And you can trust me, because not only did I start the Wolfman's Hair Removal Club for men and women, but I'm also a client. This is a fake ad for a fake product on a horror-themed podcast. Just let your hair go natural, my freaky friends. Welcome back. My next one.
Yeah.
My next one is probably the best movie on my list. Now, that being said, it's not a great movie, but in terms of what I'm coming to the table with, it is the best one. I'm talking about 1981's Venom, directed by Piers Haggard. And listen, I'm stretching the horror of this.
Not the new one?
No. I'm stretching the horror aspect of this a lot because it's more of a thriller, crime, kidnapping movie with a snake.
Put a pin in that for a second?
Mm-hmm.
The new iteration of Venom.
Oh, you're talking about
Michelle
with
Williams.
no, God, no.
Is that a snake movie?
No.
Okay.
It is not.
All right, great. Go back.
So, Venom, 1981, director Piers Haggard, who was the grandson of author H. Rider Haggard, creator of King Solomon and King Solomon's Mines, of Alan Quartermain, I should say, and King Solomon's Mines.
Bet you there was a snake in that movie.
So, you know, originally Venom was going to be helmed, I believe we mentioned this in his episode, by Tobe Hooper. But
Tobe Hooper.
He had those creative differences we all get so often, and he left. Now, the thing that really makes this incredible, interesting movie is the cast. Now, it stars Nicole Williamson, who, speaking of Excalibur, he was Merlin. Sterling Hayden, Oliver Reed, Michael Gough, Susan George, and Klaus fucking Kinski.
Wow.
Now, like, look, these are all older actors. Michael Gough was Alfred in the Tim Burton Batmans and the other ones. Susan George from Straw Dogs. Klaus Kinski is Klaus Kinski. Oliver Reed, famous lover of life. And Sterling Hayden was a famous noir actor, probably best known as the corrupt police captain in The Godfather 1. Gets shot in the throat. So anyway, Sterling Hayden is the grandfather of this snake-obsessed weird kid who's rich. And Oliver Reed, Susan George, and Klaus Kinski go to kidnap him. The kid, to, like, you know, extort money, blah, blah, blah. But there's a mix-up. The snake that this kid picked up that morning got switched with another snake that's, like, the most deadly in the world. So that thing gets loose, and it terrorizes everybody while they're in this, like, hostage standoff. And Nicole Williamson is the cop outside, like, negotiating. This snake wreaks havoc. Now,
how big is this snake?
It's not huge, but it's, like, unbelievably venomous. And when it starts biting people, their deaths are awful.
Yeah.
But the greatest part of this movie is everyone hated each other. So you put human goblin Klaus Kinski, famous Gerard Depardieu before he was Gerard Depardieu, Oliver Reed, and sterling rabble-rousing Hayden in a movie together. Shockingly enough, they didn't get along.
Yeah, I bet you, first of all, their egos were all
massive
falling over each other.
Oliver Reed was one of the legendary drinkers, and like, just like a real, you know, like, lover of life, I say, like, just lust for life, you know, wine, women, and song. Klaus Kinski was a demon in human skin. And Sterling Hayden was like a 7-foot tall baritone voice, you know, old timey, like, tough guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, this movie is like them running around the house with this bug-eyed Klaus Kinski, you know, trying to extort money from the cops. A very sweaty Oliver Reed constantly getting into standoffs with Klaus Kinski. Susan George being, you know, eaten by a snake. Mm-hmm. And Sterling Hayden with that voice being like, oh, you know, it's so awesome. It's actually very tense. It's a good, like, crime standoff movie. Oliver Reed has a very memorable death scene. And it's the use of the snake. It kind of reminded me of Alien, because it's one snake. It's not very big, but the fact that it's really hard to catch, it's mobile, and it hides everywhere.
Yeah.
Makes it very scary.
It's very snake behavioral.
Yeah. It behaves like a snake. And then
did I mention that anacondas never feed on people?
Yes, I know. It's a pretty amazing ending of Klaus Kinski, you know, in slow-mo being shot by the cops on the balcony while he's being bitten by the venom snake and wrestling with it, and it's like, it goes on for a really long time.
Yeah. This
movie is a blast. It's a lot of fun. It's a tense, you know, it's a surprisingly tense and localized little thriller. It's great 70s style stuff, but it's, you know, it's 1981, so it's like still kind of the 70s. And it's just really awesome to see these top tier, you know, very egotistical male actors barely containing their hatred for each other in these scenes. And in the end, the movie actually turns out really well.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Venom, and of the movies I'm recommending, I would say, judged on its own merits, it's probably the tightest film.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think you can catch it on Tubi.
Oh.
Yeah. Good old Tubi.
My next and last actual discussion of a snake movie is Python.
Oh.
From the year 2000.
I've never seen this one.
Oh. Well, I will tell you about it, and then you have.
Okay. You saving me the trouble?
It's starring Casper Van Dien.
Oh, I'm already interested.
Robert Englund.
Okay.
William Zabaka, Johnny from Karate Kid, which is interesting because he's in Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
But he's in Python.
Amazing.
Get it?
Yeah, I do get it.
Will Wheaton.
Everybody's favorite Star Trek The Next Generation character.
And Jenny Wahlberg, née McCarthy.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. What a cast. of people.
Yeah. Starts with a plane crash, which is a military cargo, which is carrying a genetically engineered python who is designed to be unstoppable.
So having been raised on movies like this, I am convinced anytime there's a military plane, it is carrying like some sort of hubristic experiment that spits in the eye of God.
I do want to give the quote from the NSA Special Agent Parker, because I think it's important to know. That's played by Casper Van Dien, and specifically
Obviously.
about this animal. A perfect killing machine, a 129-foot all-terrain vehicle capable of speeds exceeding 50 miles an hour, with skin that can deflect an anti-tank round, enhanced night vision, and a voracious appetite for human flesh.
Fuck yeah. That's what they tell you at the pet store when you want to pick one up.
So
I love Casper
happens?
Van Dien. Casper Van Dien's passion for the projects that he is in is so cool. He is still carrying the torch for keeping Starship Troopers cool 30 years later.
So it starts out on this plane, and then the plane crashes, okay? And so this beefed up python escapes.
Yeah.
And then it starts to terrorize. I don't mean to gender the snake. It starts to terrorize.
It does say that the snake uses he, him pronouns.
Start to terrorize the small town near where they crashed. There's also a weird like chemical plant nearby. But it's stalks and kills random people, and bodies end up showing up.
You know, like snakes do.
The scariest part of this film is that the bodies that are left behind are seemingly being decomposed and burned by acid, which I'm guessing is the python's digestive venom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yum.
The effects aren't terrible in this film. I think the pro of this film is that it's very campy. I mean, the plane crashes into a lesbian campsite, so it leans right into the camp of it all. The camp, and I know it's mentioned everywhere. It's mentioned in every summary and review about this lesbian campsite. So I feel like I need to also mention it because of the ridiculousness of it.
Every campsite I go to, they have signage everywhere declaring the campsite's sexual preference.
Yeah.
This campsite prefers to be called queer.
You did hear me say the effects are not the worst.
I heard the wording. Yeah.
There's lots of rubber snakes.
Okay.
That are part of this film. And it's William Zabaka is the local sheriff. So there's a lot of people who are in this film that are leaning into the camp of it.
Yeah.
Are at the level of the film's caliber.
Ambition. Yeah.
And then some that take it a little too serious.
Yeah. That didn't quite get the assignment.
Yeah. That they're like, I take every acting job I get as possible.
I owe
Oscar
it to the
winning.
audience to give nothing but my best.
There's also a Pythoniverse. So it's
of course there is.
Python, New Alcatraz, Pythons 2. New Alcatraz actually stars Dana Ashbrook from Twin Peaks.
Okay.
Pythons 2 brings back William Zabaka and Dana Ashbrook together.
Oh, team up like Avengers. Did they at the end? Is there an end credit
scene? I did not watch. I'm sorry.
Is there an end credit scene where Casper Van Dien brings them together and he's like, "I want you to join the Python Initiative"?
Casper Van Dien is not in any of these movies after Python. And then Boa versus Python, which Boa is a whole nother averse.
It's like Sadako versus Kayako.
So there's also multiple Python films that you can watch.
You can.
That are sort of in the same...
But life is short.
World. So yeah.
If you're considering watching all of these films, reach out to a friend for help.
I would say that this film is the ridiculousness that it displays is what you're getting right away. Like, you're getting it right away. I don't think it pretends it's anything else, which it makes it more enjoyable to watch. But I mean, I felt a lot of the film, I don't know why this is, watching films like this are so frustrating to me, because this is the best I could find.
I feel like you care more than anyone who made this movie.
This film will have you yelling at the TV a lot, or the projector, like whatever you're watching this.
Yeah, if you're watching this in a movie theater in 2024, 2000s Python.
I would say maybe Anaconda might have like a little cult following, but Python definitely doesn't.
No?
I don't even think Anaconda really does, except for maybe some like funny lines.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to see these played in like small movie theaters. They should be where you get rubber snakes in you every time there's a snake mentioned, or the word snake, or the name of the particular brand of snake, like Python or Boa or
snake brands.
Anaconda. You have to throw a rubber snake at the screen.
I think this is the kind of movie you find packaged with 5 other movies in the bargain bin at Target.
This is the kind of movie that you may see Casper Van Dien's like desperate pleas on the trailer, and you think that it might be good.
I think if you have Casper Van Dien as number 1 on the call sheet, and I don't mean this with any shade, I do genuinely like Casper Van Dien.
It was also
you
the
just
year
know
2000,
you know what kind of movie it's going to be. If your
Yeah.
lead is Casper Van Dien, it's going to be that kind of movie, and that's fucking fine.
Yeah. So that's the
Python.
kind of movie it is.
Aw.
Python from the year 2000.
Well, listen, I'm really going to take things up a notch in terms of quality, sophistication, and just
You're
all
gonna take
around.
us all the way back.
Oh boy. I had a real unexpected experience with this movie in that I absolutely adore it. It's amazing. It had me glued to the screen the entire time and belly laughing throughout the last half hour. It is an absolute fucking picture perfect example of that old saying, a movie so bad it's good. This really is that movie. And I am talking about 1973's movie from director Bernard L. Kowalski. That is the title of the movie. It's 7 S's. And only the first is capitalized.
Correct. As it should be, because it's a proper name.
Just kudos to them. So, in the movie...
That was too many S's. I counted 9.
No, that was fine. You are incorrect. Now, this movie's amazing. This movie has everything you could want from a movie. Now, I'm going to name some names that anybody under the age of 60 or who isn't like a weird retro film freak might not know, but I'll explain. So, Strother Martin plays... Yeah, you know, that guy that the kids all are crazy about? Strother Martin plays a snake-obsessed herpetologist named Dr. Stoner. Already,
nice.
This movie. So Strother Martin was an old-timey actor. He was in like Bonanza and shit, but he's probably most well-known for playing the tyrannical prison warden in Cool Hand Luke. And for Guns N' Roses fans, that speech he does at the beginning of Civil War where he goes, "What we've got here." So he's got that weird voice, right?
Yeah.
So imagine that voice saying weird shit about snakes for 2 hours. And that's Dr. Stoner. Now, he lives with his weirdly immature yet fully grown daughter, Christina, who's played by the unfortunately named Heather Menzies-Urich. So she was in Piranha. She was in the TV version of Logan's Run. And also as the heartthrob and main character of the movie, we have Dirk Benedict. Yes. Original Battlestar Galactica and the A-Team's Dirk Benedict. Heartthrob extraordinaire. Now, this movie ostensibly is about Dr. Stoner, who lives with lots of snakes, and he is working on an experiment to create a snake-man hybrid, which will be the perfect creature to survive.
Snake Man.
Yeah, to survive all of the upcoming disasters like climate disasters and nuclear holocausts and whatever the Soviets are doing. This is 1973. So he hires as his new assistant because his last assistant skipped town. Huh. Weird. Dirk Benedict, who plays a shirt-hating college student who is, I'm going on record as saying, the world's most credulous, trusting, dipshit college student of all time. I think he might actually be a grad student, and his first question is, what's a herpetologist? Which is, I'm sorry.
Was he there to study?
Yes, he was first seen in a snake lecture class, and you're like...
Didn't you read the description in the syllabus?
It's a grad school.
Did they have syllabi in 1973?
Yes. So they
Heather
had that in like
Menzies.
fucking ancient Greece.
Did you mention Robert Urich before? 'Cause,
I did. Yeah.
That they're married.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's amazing that your last name is Menzies and you name a guy whose first name starts with Ura.
Well, it's like Heather Menzies Urich.
Yeah. Menzies Urea. So, okay. Let me just... There's a lot. I got to get through this. So Dr. Struther lives with like tons and tons of highly venomous snakes all over the place. And he extracts their venom and sends them off to like laboratories and shit. But he also is working on creating this snake monster. So he starts injecting Dirk Benedict as his new assistant with what he says is anti-snake venom. But it's like...
It's snake venom.
It's snake venom. He's injecting him with snake venom to acclimate him to, being... bitten, possibly, which is a real thing that real herpetologists do. But what he's really doing...
What's a herpetologist?
Oh, it's somebody who studies
reptiles
and amphibians. But yes, you're right. So the thing is, he's injecting him with this stuff that he never explains fully. And every time, Dirk Benedict's like, sure. I mean, we just met today, but why not inject me? And I'll stay in your house. And throughout the movie, he's injecting him with this stuff. And even after things like an entire layer of skin peels off, his face turns green and weird, and he starts getting scales. He's still like, okay, sitting down for his injections.
Is he aware that the whole point is for him to create a snake monster?
No, that's being hidden from him.
Snake Man?
But he's like...
Snake Man monster?
He's going through these body horror changes, and he is like, doing the fly thing where he's like, I've never felt better. But then his body temperature is like 84 degrees or something. It's like insane, right? So he's turning into a snake, and he develops this romantic relationship with Christina, the daughter, who is, again, a grown woman and a scientist, but whose personality is so naive and dumb in this movie that it made the entire romantic courtship so uncomfortable because I could not get it out of my head that it was like borderline statutory rape. Again, fully grown woman, nothing wrong. Her character is so fucking dumb in this movie, like so underdeveloped, and acts like such a child that when they're like making out and stuff, I was grossed out more than any snake part. I'm like, eh. Anyway.
That's the ultimate.
A lot happens in this.
Snake man.
A lot happens, especially towards the end. There's some like tobacco chewing dipshit local sheriff, which is amazing. And did you just say Snake Man in his pants?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just didn't want that to go away. He puts on these like weird public shows with spectators where he's like hypnotizing a king cobra. And listen, a couple things about this movie to give it some credit. They used all real snakes, like all venomous real snakes that they did not devenomize or defang. So all the scenes of them like milking the venom out of, they're really doing that. And the actors were with venomous snakes throughout this whole movie. A few highlights. Rapey Steve, who is like the biggest cartoon character of a chauvinist, makes the moves on Christina And, of course, her dad, Strother Martin, the guy known for being a snake weirdo, murders him with a snake. They're definitely not going to figure that one out.
No.
The cops are already onto him for his missing assistant, who it turns out is a weird, balding, green snake man with no arms or legs in a local freak show. And
Yikes.
When Christina finds out, she goes nuts and comes back. But it's already too late. David is undergoing the final transformations of his transmogrification into
a snake man.
Into the
as promised.
A snake man, as promised, the ultimate creature to survive nuclear holocaust, famine, war, and whatever will wipe out humanity. Only there's a twist. See, in the end, when he's undergoing the final stages of the transformation, he does go through a medium stage where he looks like a snake man, and then he ends up turning into a snake, a regular snake. So what Dr. Stoner has managed to do is inject this innocent guy with venom that turns him into a snake. A king cobra with blue eyes.
He forgot the man part.
And at the end of the movie, two things happen. Dr. Stoner voluntarily goes outside with his king cobra snake, not the new one he just made, but the real one, and demanding an audience with the king, starts to tell him all about his new creation, and then the cobra does what cobras do and murders him. Mm-hmm. And you're like, why'd you do that? You just went out and got bit. Okay. And the ultimate survival man snake that he made, which again is just a snake, gets eaten by a mongoose, the animal that eats snakes.
Where is this supposed to take place?
In like a weird cabin in America, like in the fucking, I don't know, Pennsylvania or Kentucky or some shit.
Okay.
I just really want to stress that he spends a lot of time, the entire movie, talking about how he's going to create what will save humanity. And in the end, makes a snake that within moments of its new life as a snake is murdered by a mongoose in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Again, the mongoose being, if you're going to make a snake that can survive nuclear fallout, would you not include something that it could defend itself against its one natural predator? So, anyway, I know I've been pooping on this because it's a really bad movie, but it is so funny because everyone plays this like this is a award-winning sci-fi horror masterpiece. There is actually some really good shit in there. I mean, the use of real snakes is not nothing. And there's a very Saw-like murder scene where Dr. Stoner orchestrates the death of a colleague with this weird puzzle and like morality thing, and then gets him crushed to death and eaten by a python in a surprisingly gory scene. Now, this movie's PG because PG-13 hadn't been invented yet. So there's some scenes in there where you're like, God damn, that made it into it. But overall, is best enjoyed. And I would say an
with
altered frame
tea?
of mind. Yes, mushroom tea would be good. I would say don't watch this one stone cold sober. You won't get the enjoyment out of it. And really go into it with the idea that this movie is bananas crazy and hilariously funny without meaning to be. It really seems like it plays everything very straight, and I could not stop laughing. I loved the experience of watching this absolute bizarre, weird movie that I don't know if you can find it anywhere. I had to like really, really search for it, but
go into the old archives.
Yeah, 1973's.
All right. Well, what's this rapid fire thing
I thought since you and I really only came up with examples that ranged from bad unwatchable to bad and fun, we could maybe talk about some of the really iconic scenes in movies or stories that use snakes to highlight or accentuate or just really heighten something.
Okay.
I've got a few examples if you have some as well.
I do.
Well, let's hear one of yours.
Well, I want to hear what the sort of premise of this is.
All right.
So why don't you
I'll get started. I'm going to start with our old buddy Indiana Jones, who's had a few memorable encounters with snakes. Now, Indiana Jones
hate snakes.
Was given this fear of snakes by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg because they did not want him to be an all-powerful, like, superhero. They wanted him to be flawed. That's why, like, he gets beaten up a bunch of times, and he doesn't always win necessarily. He's scrappy, but they wanted to give him an actual Achilles heel, like a weakness. And when he gets tossed into the Well of Souls with all the snakes, you can see him for the first time, like, really lose his nerve. He is terrified. He overcomes it, but it was a wonderful moment of character development, and also he's covered in fucking snakes. It's terrifying. Now, sticking on with Indy, obviously, you got to mention Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the beloved prequel that no one has a problem with, and Snake Surprise! I'll never, ever forget the moment I first saw that as a kid when they're sitting down to the gross dinner of eyeball soup and whatnot, and they open up a pregnant snake and all these snakes, baby snakes come out, and that was Snake Surprise. Mm-hmm. And that's just a moment of, like, gross and scary and gross.
Yeah. My first mention is going to be the movie Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid.
Oh my! Wow.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
Yeah, they're like psychics that are trying to go into other people's dreams, and they try to cure the president who has nightmares about nuclear war, and he gets into the dream of a young boy who has terrible nightmares, and he calls the snake, this creature, the boy calls the Snake Man. And although it's not really a snake, he has arms and legs. It's actually a snake man, like what's
promised us.
Yep,
but did not deliver. And
this was a pretty, like, scary, pivotal moment. Because the Snake Man shows up again in multiple dreams while he's going into these.
Yeah, that
nightmares.
movie rocks.
I
know. Sticking on, like, the sort of YA of it all, because that was like a sort of for kids. Harry Potter, Nagini, the parcel tongue companion snake to Tom Riddle himself.
Yeah.
That was pretty evil and big. It was a basilisk, which, like Medusa's, head snakes, turns you to stone.
Right.
Yeah.
Was that Chamber of Secrets?
It was. Yeah, Chamber of Secrets.
But he also, from the first film all the way through.
Oh, snakes play, Slytherin. And, he's part Slytherin and all that. Yeah.
So that's very, very pivotal to his development.
Yeah, but Nagini made a big impact because that was a big old anaconda-sized monster snake.
The Jungle Book.
Oh, Kaa.
Kaa is not bad. People think he's bad. He does hypnotize Mowgli, but it's for his own good, because he is able to help in ways that protect Mowgli.
I really like Kaa because it plays to the other sort of literary, like, personifications that people put on snakes, is that they are crafty, they're wily, they have wits. That was part of Lucifer in the Garden of Eden, was he tempted them to eat from the tree of knowledge, which, according to Christianity, knowing things is the worst possible sin you could commit. But the snake as, the smart one, the one that uses its guile and its wits to, not its guile, its wile, and its wits to solve problems. It was very, very cool.
In the animated, musical version, Kaa is represented not very nice because the panther comes and saves him because he wraps around Mowgli. But he's guided by a talking cobra to find some treasure in the film versions and the original version.
It's an interesting depiction of a snake, because a snake to me is not evil, but it's not good.
No.
It's
similar here.
Yeah, it's like chaotic evil or lawful evil. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, speaking of Disney, when Jafar turns into a big old snake at the end of Aladdin, that was pretty fucked up. Mm-hmm. That scared me.
And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And we also can't leave out Now, I'm a huge fan.
You're going 2 in a row? Or
just the Disneys. I can't leave out, because I'm a massive fan of the Don Bluth era of Disney. Sir Hiss from Robin Hood. Fucking Prince John's, like, evil, shitty advisor.
Yeah. Right. Labyrinth.
Oh, I forgot about that.
From 1986.
Yeah.
That's how she gets into the world.
Yeah.
David Bowie shows up in her room with the crystal ball, and he slowly
the Goblin King
spins it around, and it turns into a snake, which he throws around her neck. And then all of a sudden, she's in Labyrinth.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. I definitely want to shout out, and especially since he recently left us, R.I.P. to the great James Earl Jones, Thulsa Doom, head of the snake cult of Conan the Barbarian, who quite literally turns into a snake in one of the movie's more memorable scenes. James Earl Jones. He was also in The Exorcist 2, which I think had some snake stuff in it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, G.I. Joe, Rise of the Cobra. It's basically the etymology of how G.I. Joe gets to be this.
Yeah, classic
villain.
horror tale.
Yeah. Right?
I do want to mention there are two kinds of movies.
King Cobra.
There are two kinds of movies you're guaranteed to find some snake shit in. Demonic possession movies, whether it's Catholic, Buddhist, or
the craft, witchy movies.
Witch movies, yeah. Okay, so 3. Witch movies, demonic possession, and anything filmed in like Indonesia or like Central South America. Like there are always snakes. Like The Old Ways was a pretty good Mexican American, which is Central America, but North America. Anywhere south of the Texas border. So The Old Ways, there was like lots of snakes with the bruja who was doing all the ceremonies. Indonesian films or South Korean films usually feature shamans. And the Indonesian films, especially with Islamic imagery, there's a lot of snakes in the torture of the afterlife. In Catholic-based exorcism movies, there are always snakes. Basically anything dealing with the devil, whether it's Judeo-Christian or Islamic, has a snake in it. So if you're like jonesing for a snake scene, just pick the possession of whatever movie, and there's probably going to be a snake going in and out of someone's mouth.
Absolutely. And if you just probably Google snake appearances in movies, you'll probably find a list of every movie a snake has ever been in. I
think that, we've really exposed something here in the Terror in Tandem crew.
No, we've given ideas out to horror directors out there and horror creators.
Now,
make an actual
Alexander
scary...
Aja just did Crawl a few years ago, which showed you can have reptiles in a absolutely kick-ass movie. One of Quentin Tarantino's recent favorites. He loves that movie.
Speaking of Quentin Tarantino, what about the...
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah. Salma Hayek.
Santanico Pandemonium. Yeah. Salma Hayek doing her sexy dance with a snake.
She was toe-sucking scene.
Terrified of that snake.
Of course.
She had a real tough time filming that, but she's
the toe-sucking scene. Everyone, she sticks her toe in.
She does, and she pours like tequila down it. And Quentin Tarantino doesn't. He won't make a movie without a foot in his mouth. But Salma Hayek is a real fucking reina. She is a queen. She was so game in that movie. Danced in a sexy outfit with a big old snake. Santanica Pandemonium.
We can't forget Rango, the gunfighter rattlesnake.
Oh yeah, the evil rattlesnake guy.
Yep.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, but listen, in terms of like movies where the snake is the primary antagonist, surprised to say, it's a dearth of it. Slim Pickens. Get out there, Hollywood. Make some snake movies. They're gross. They scare people. They bite you. Honestly, that's not really true. Just snakes are pretty easy. Don't go in their business.
They really are necessary.
They fuck with them.
Rid of predatory bugs.
They're an incredible part of the ecosystem. They're an amazing creature. I don't mean to demonize them in any way.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it's Big Snake that is preventing movies from really being made.
Petco doesn't want to. But the in the recent story by Stephen King, Rattlesnakes, there's a scene in there where it talks about how people react to someone being bitten by a rattlesnake is they cull all the snakes on this island and kill like tens of thousands of snakes. So, I
believe Bill Nye voiced the rattlesnake in Rango.
Nice.
I just want to look that up. The Stephen King short story Rattlesnakes is a follow-up to Cujo.
It's really good.
It's very much about these snakes that live in this part of these rattlesnakes that live in...
It's like mostly a ghost story, though.
Florida. This part of Florida where...
Featured in this year's You Like It Darker.
Yes. So definitely has the fear factor of snakes within that film. Not primarily about snakes, but I think it's definitely a component of this, like the snake bite.
It's also just real damn good.
Brutal it is.
Yeah, it's really good.
And especially his description of the brutality.
Yes,
of the
there's a
snake
scene
bites.
where the two characters get swarmed by rattlesnakes, and the way it's written is, it leaves me breathless. Yeah. I mean, Stephen King is the man. So yeah, hey, listen, there's a lot of opportunity out there for somebody to make a snake-centric horror movie.
Yeah, we did our episode on it.
It doesn't have
now
to be.
You do your film on it.
It doesn't have to be like Snake NATO versus Crab Police. It could be like an actual serious movie.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's been snakes, folks.
Yeah.
Next time we're going to be doing newts and the horrors of betta fish.
Next week we're going to do a movie on snake skins and how scary they can be.
Again, listen, Dirk Benedict, if after like the 5th venom injection, your entire layer of skin across your body, including down there, peels off, don't get a 6th injection. Like, that was the first thing that went wrong with him. That was the first thing that went wrong. It
after
got worse
5
from
injections.
there. It got worse from there, and he kept being like, okay, boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo, as long as I get to take my shirt off.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our theme was written and performed by Carrie Denver, and all other music was written and performed by David Suspanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. We're